I call the July 13, 2010 County Commissioners meeting to order. Call on Mr. Johnson for the invocation.
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, again, we come to you and we thank you for the many blessings of ours. And we thank you for this opportunity to serve you and serve the people of this county. Pray we'll do so in a way that will enrich their lives and bring honor to the name of our Savior, the Lord Jesus, for we ask it in his name. Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mashman, do you have any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, there are a couple of items to add to the agenda this evening, and those were mailed out to you, but I would like to go ahead and submit those to be added to the agenda. The first item, which would become item K, is a request from the Greater Statesville Development Corporation to approve a contract with Central Iowa Council of Governments to do a community profile. This is something that is done periodically. The Central Iowa Council of Governments accumulates from many different sources profile information on the county, and then that's used by the GSDC and others in their recruitment efforts into the county. The GSDC will pay a cash of $1,404. They're requesting that the county contribute 7.5 of its membership hours from the COG, and they will be making the same request from the city. So that's the request that is before you, and that is a service agreement with Central Iowa Council of Governments, and that is item K. And the next item is in response to a letter that we received from the town of Mooresville, where they have appointed 2 of their commissioners to work with the county to discuss the funding, continued funding of the Mooresville transfer station. So that will be item 11. The request is to appoint 2 members of the county commissioners to meet with the 2 members of the Mooresville commissioners to discuss funding of the transfer station. Mr. Chairman, those are the 2 items that we have to add to the agenda. There is a correction that needs to be made, excuse me, under closed session. The purpose is legal, but the citation is incorrect. It should be GS 143-318-11A3. 11A3. Those are the changes and additions that I have to the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mashman. Are there any additions or corrections to the docket? If not, do I have a motion to accept the docket?
So moved.
Any questions regarding the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Presentation of special recognition awards, we have none. Appointments before the board, we have none. Public hearing, we have none. Now I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Mashman.
Okay, under the administrative matters, the first item is a request for appointment of voting delegate for the annual conference of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. That conference is going to be held on August the 26th. It will be held in Pitt County at the Greenville Convention Center. It will go through August the 29th. If registration is made prior to July the 26th, there is no registration cost. After July the 26th, the registration cost will be $199. They're requesting that you appoint at least 1 delegate and an alternate if you have one.
So I understand if we appoint someone now, we are no cost, right?
That is correct. As long as it's made, as long as we get it in before July the 26th, there'll be no cost for registration.
Anyone interested in going? Johnson, you interested? No?
Not
Okay.
particularly.
Mr. Keetle, you interested? Okay. Mr. Messman, since there's no cost there, I'll act as the delegate for the county.
Okay. I think probably for the minutes, there needs to be a motion and that entered into the minutes, appointing
Okay.
the chairman as your delegate.
Have a motion?
I move that we appoint our chairman, Marvin Norman, as our delegate.
Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Item 2 is a request from the Board of Elections to apply for a grant to, for one-stop voting. This would give the county 3 voting sites. We do have our elections director here.
Yes, you do. Thank you. We do want to offer 3 satellite sites for the November election this fall, and we would also like for you to allow us to apply for federal HAVA grant funds to pay for the salaries for the one-stop workers. We'll offer 2 sites in the Mooresville area and 1 in the north end, and then, of course, our office will be open. So we'd just like your permission to apply for the grant money.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved. Any questions? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Item 3 is to appropriate lottery funds for the Iredell Statesville Schools. Susan Blumenstein, Finance Director, will handle that.
The board on June 1st approved an application for Iredell Statesville Schools to apply for an additional $430,000 as a drawdown from our lottery fund allotment. That has been approved, and it is available for me to draw the funds, and I'd request that you approve this budget amendment so I can pay those funds to the Iredell Statesville Schools.
Any questions for Ms. Blumenstein? Have a motion?
Move we grant this request, Mr. Chairman.
A motion to grant the request. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ken Vaughn will present the next item, and that is a request to transfer funds so that they can employ a summer intern. Mr. Vaughn?
Thank you very much. This is something that has been in the budget for a number of years, has been treated as contract labor, but due to some changes in the laws and regulations, it was the advice of the administration, county administration, that we move this from that to part-time employment there to meet those guidelines. So we're asking permission to move that from contract to part-time labor.
Any questions, Mr. Vaughn? Not, I entertain a motion. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn.
Mr. Martin will present the next item, and that is to request approval to apply for funding for a full-scale exercise.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Back in June, we conducted a tabletop exercise regarding a plane crash out at Statesville Regional Airport. In that, we learned some things, and it was our intention to try to look over into the fall at a full-scale exercise to learn further. We had some of the state emergency management folks involved with us, and they came back and wanted to know if we would be interested in some money to help us put on the full-scale exercise. They said they had identified some funds that were left over from another exercise in the western part of the state, and that we would welcome to them if we wanted to apply for them. So that's what I'm here for, is to ask your permission to apply for these funds. It's going to be basically about $10,500.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Martin? I'll entertain a motion.
Motion for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Martin.
you.
Mr. Jackson will present item F, and that is to request approval of an agreement with Mr. Bob Barton to operate a food vending stand at the Hall of Justice.
Good evening. Here with us tonight is Mr. Bob Barton. He's approached the county and wishes to sell hot dogs at the Hall of Justice, out in front there of the Hall of Justice. A copy of the proposed agreement has been included in your packets, and the agreement has been reviewed and approved by the county attorney, our finance director, the purchasing agent, and our insurance specialist. The proposed agreement addresses a number of different areas, including but not limited to a monthly payment to the county for the privilege of selling on county premises, limits on the location and size of the cart, restrictions to address litter, traffic, and other potential concerns, and specific insurance requirements to protect the county and its interest. At this time, Mr. Barton does not have the required insurance and licenses that he needs to operate his cart. But if you approve this agreement, Mr. Barton will not be allowed to operate on county property until he has obtained the proper insurance and those licenses. And Mr. Barton is here tonight if you have any questions for him specifically.
Who will regulate? The health department?
Right, and there may also be some city requirements, since it is in the city of Statesville also, that he'll have to meet in terms of permits. So,
Any questions of Mr. Barton?
I'm interested, it says until terminated multi-year. What happens if someone else comes along and wants to compete? What do we do?
it's not an exclusive franchise, so there would be the possibility that somebody else could come before the board and ask for permission to do something similar.
Either party has the option to terminate it.
Yes.
Mr. Messer, did you have something?
Well, I was just going to mention, and I do know that Mr. Jackson did contact several of the officers and department heads in the Hall of Justice area and got responses back from them. And all of the responses that we received back, there were the questions that we've tried to address here, such as litter and so forth. But the responses that we received back were positive in that there was a need for something in closer proximity to the Hall of Justice for the numbers of people that we have over there, jurors as well as other people attending court. And so this is a step in meeting that need, but it'll be new for us, and so we want to go cautiously with it, but it is something that there does appear to be a need and a demand for in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Mashman. Any other questions?
Just a comment that passed my mind, Mr. Jackson. It's a multi-year agreement, so we don't know how long it's going to last. But you know, if it goes on for quite a while, at some time we're going to make capital improvements at the courthouse and or the jail. I think it needs to be understood with Mr. Barton on the front end that if that comes about, then he may have to locate his hot dog stand to another place, and that needs to be a mutually agreed upon place between, I'm going to assume that's going to be you since you have the task at this point, but I think it needs to be understood that we'll try to accommodate him as best we can, not to be detrimental to his business, but it'll have to be a mutually agreed upon site.
Right, that's a good point. That's something that we did not put in the agreement, but we have worked into the agreement as far as the location, distances from the building, and sidewalks, parking, things like that, right, so it wouldn't interfere with those areas. So we definitely would follow up and Mr.
I mean,
Martin said Mr. Barton is here tonight.
They may need the front lawn for staging area for
Right.
building supplies, so he
Sure.
may have to locate somewhere else.
Right.
Any other questions for Mr. Jackson? Thank you, Mr. Jackson. How about Mr. Barton? Any questions for Mr. Barton? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Motion to approve. Any questions regarding the motion?
Question.
Go ahead.
I guess that's implied as a part of your motion that it will be subject to mutually selected site.
No, I think it'd probably be a good idea to have it in there. Just so, you know, Mr. Jackson could move on to bigger and better things, and we could all be doing something else.
Would you recommend just making that amendment to the contract and then?
Either way, I think it can be a part of the motion. If approved.
Okay.
Okay, we'll let it remain part of the motion. Any questions or additional questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed likewise. Okay, ayes have it.
Thank you.
Ron Smith, Director of Planning, will present item memo number 7.
Thank you. As you all know, America's Park has made their announcement that they're coming to the South Iredell area. And as part of that announcement, there's obvious, or as part of that location, there's obvious benefits to the county. There is, however, going to be one detriment, and being the road that it is located on. Rankin Hill Road, which intersects with Judas Road here, and which Judas intersects with Perth Road as you go kind of northwest, is unpaved for about 0.7 of a mile. And as you can imagine, the number of cars that are going to be traveling on that road is going to be very high. And if it does remain a gravel road, that's going to potentially cause some dust and potential car damage, things of that nature, and also damage to Judas Road at the intersection. The request that I have before you tonight is to include Rankin Hill Road, this point or the 0.7 of a mile, on the secondary roads paving program. This is a program that the NCDOT has for the county every year, and it just goes through with the paving of all of the a number of unpaved roads each year. Right now, Rankin Hill Road's ranked at about 82 or 83 on the list. We're going off of last year's list. So this would move it up to either one of the highest spots or possibly even the higher spot if the board approves this tonight and it goes through the Board of Transportation and gets their approval as well. I have attached here to the memo a resolution in support of the moving of this project. And in addition to that, I also have a letter to Mike Holder, the Division 12 engineer, which is explaining the request and talking about the resolution and the approval if the board gives it tonight. Russell Rogerson from the Mooresville South Iredell EDC is here in support of this as well, and I'd be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I need to ask you a question. You're saying it's about 82 or 83 on the priority list. We still have a lot of people living in the county on dirt roads right now that's been waiting and waiting and waiting to get their roads paved. Mm-hmm. Is there not some other process that we can go to DOT and get this road on their paving list without putting Rankin Road ahead of all of those that's been waiting to get their roads paved?
There may be. What this would do would essentially ask the state to take it out of order. And if they wanted to, or if they could find the funding to do this project in addition to the others that are slated for this coming year, then maybe they would be willing to do that. The TIP program, the Transportation Improvement Program, which is the statewide roads improvement, is a little bit bigger than this, and I don't think that that's going to be a possibility for us. I think, from my understanding, that it may just be either up to the developer or really up to the Board of Transportation to make the decision to pave it.
Do you have a cost of what it would be to pave the road?
I do not.
As far as whether it would be moved up the priority list and to what position, that's solely the discretion of the Board of Transportation?
That's true.
Ski, do you have anything?
What projects would, where are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the moment?
I don't have that information. I can get that fairly easily. I asked a bunch of questions of DOT, but I did not ask that.
But you did say this could potentially be moved to spot number 1.
Potentially it could, yes.
So whatever's number 1 now would maybe, lose its funding because of this.
That's possible. I think it's also possible in talking with the guys at DOT that our representative could free up some discretionary funds to deal with this project separate in a way from the others on that list. But I don't know that would be the case. We were instructed to in our conversations about this to go through the proper channels and go through the division before going and approaching the Board of Transportation.
Go ahead.
There used to be, I don't know if it still is now or not, but there was a program within the DOT that where the property owners could put up a substantial amount of money, I think half, and the state would do the rest. Have you looked into this? I know that we've been told up in the northern end on our dirt roads that if the property owners would pay half, the state would do the other, and that was several years ago. And I'm having a tremendous amount of heartburn to put this road number 1 priority when we got people been living up there for decades waiting on their roads, and knowing that other developers, when they've gone in with their own projects, have paved their own roads, and I'm having a serious problem with this request you're asking tonight. I think there needs to be another way of going about getting the road paved.
I understand, and I believe that because this project is more or less in its infancy and hasn't started moving dirt yet, I would expect, and I can't promise that this would happen, but there's going to be a traffic impact analysis for the project itself, which may cause the developer to possibly put up substantial improvements in the area. It's just not that far along yet. I think the intent when it first came to me was to try to see if DOT would pitch in to do this before we even get off the ground.
Are we on any kind of compressed time frame?
I wouldn't say that we are. I don't know that this is tied to a fiscal year or any time frame with
the reason
DOT.
I asked, Russell, is Mr. Mitchell at the airport, when Rubbermaid was coming and they needed the road paved further and brought around loads that would access their hangar, then the North Carolina DOT aviation wing actually had some money that was in the DOT budget, but it was set aside for economic development, and they pulled it out of that. So that it's a different pot of money. I'm ignorant, I'll confess that, but there may be some type of money that the DOT can come up with for economic development that would not infringe upon those folks waiting in line, which, I think you express a valid concern. So I was thinking maybe if we could pursue that avenue first via a letter from our chairman to Judge Collier, and if that doesn't work, then we could come back and just, I guess, make a real-world decision of whether we're going to inconvenience somebody.
I know the Department of Commerce has got money for economic development. This is probably the best economic development project we've had in this county in years, and I'm for it, but there's a lot of people still on those dirt roads eating that dust every day that will not cotton highly to this happening to them. I can assure you of that.
And possibly because we don't have the answers that would or would not definitely eliminate another paving project. If a letter of support to the DOT under best efforts to drive additional funding for Rankin Hill Road paving would be a very appreciated first step, and may lead us into those further conversations that would clarify that before we need to take that move to where you all designate it as number one. Anything? So we would appreciate if you would be willing to do that.
I would.
Mr. Smith, it seemed like when I looked at that map before that the project, to a large extent, maybe even on two sides, was kind of bounded by Rankin Hill Road there. And so this is almost an extension, this road is almost an extension of their property. Is that, did I remember that correctly or no?
I think you do. I think you do. There's, and Russ can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it sits primarily in this little V area. On the other side of Rankin Hill, there is going to be some associated development, but it's basically for the septic fields from what I've seen.
So for all intents and purposes, this road becomes their road?
It would, and one thing I will point out, because it's such a big project, Rankin Hill, it's never been a good cut through because it is gravel. It becomes a primary access for this project, in my opinion, for people coming from the north, from getting off at exit 42 and coming down Flower House Loop, and then over to Rankin Hill. So, it's going to be an integral road to it, but totally understanding the comments by Commissioner Mitchell about others that could be bumped. But I will say that Russ's suggestion, I don't think that necessarily we would need to leave here saying this is our number one priority, but some support saying that it is a priority for the county commissioners would also carry a lot of weight.
Well, I mean, just every day of the week it'd be some relief to traffic on Perth Road every day of the week. I would, that'd be my suggestion. We just have the chairman, have the clerk craft a letter and the chairman sign it requesting that Judge Collier present this to the DOT board if they have any discretionary money for economic development, that they do it through that. And if they can't, then Mr. Rogerson can come back to us at a later date and we'll make a tough decision.
Any other questions?
If it pleases the chair, I'd place that in the form of a motion.
Sure, go ahead.
I make a motion that the clerk craft a letter requesting Judge Collier to present this to the DOT board, requesting money for economic development for the paving of the unimproved portion of Rankin Hill Road, and that letter be signed by our chairman.
Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
Thank you.
The next item, memo number 8, is to award a contract to G.L. Wilson for the construction of a rail spur. But there is something that's connected with this that basically has to be done. Correct me, Mr. Pope. We need to take care of this before you actually approve the contract. It's associated with it, but it's an item that we found out about today that needs to be taken care of prior to that. So we have an agreement here that I'm passing around that you're going to handle the discussion on that, Mr. Pope?
When we did the Pratt development, when we participated in the incentives and the helped Pratt come here, we had to do a rail agreement. We did an agreement that dealt with the track from the main track into the Pratt property. That property was called a lead track agreement. We have another one that we need to do now because there'll be a spur coming off of that track, going from that track over to the Providenia property. This document's called a lead track agreement. It's been hammered around. I've negotiated with the railroad folks for a while. We finally got it in a form that I'm pretty comfortable with. I don't think you can ever get entirely comfortable when you're dealing with the railroad. It's almost like dealing with the Chinese government. But as far as I'm concerned, this is as good agreement as we can get, and it's one that I'm pretty comfortable with, and it's one we can get out of on 60 days' notice. So it's my recommendation to you that you authorize the chairman to sign this lead track agreement, which is essentially the same agreement we executed previously with the Pratt transaction.
Any questions?
That needs to be done before you award a contract.
Mr. Niblock, do you have additional information? Or?
I have a copy of the lead agreement, and I was aware of it, yes, sir. And
Mr. Pope, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Niblock.
And it is my understanding that needs to be executed prior to presenting the item to award the contract.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. John.
This document in no way obligates us to any maintenance of the rail spur. That's
during the construction period until the project is completed, we're responsible. The thing I was concerned about is the warning devices. We have to have some warning devices where the rail spur crosses the Deer Ridge Road.
right.
That is, however, going to be paid for by the Department of Transportation. We will be responsible until the DOT assumes responsibility on completion, but they tell me that's likely to be 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
We entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the agreement.
Any questions regarding the
Have you
motion?
sign it, Mr. Chairman?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
Okay, now we're ready to ask for your awarding the contract.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mashman. Good evening. I'd sent you a memorandum about the bids that we had for the Providenia Rail Spur out at the West Industrial Park. We had 5 bidders that bid on the project. We had to disqualify 2 of the bidders for either incomplete submittals or improper licensing, contractors license categories, which made the lowest qualified bidder, G.L. Wilson, at the base sum of $674,900, which is within the amount that is budgeted in the project ordinance for this. So I would recommend to the board that they award the contract to G.L. Wilson, which is as stated the lowest qualified bidder, pending final written approval by NCDOT Rail and release of funds by the Department of Commerce for the sum of $674,900. I do have received verbal approval from NCDOT Rail, and that information has been passed on to the lady that has to do the written approval. And I have an email that's not included in your packet that I just received at 4:24 p.m. this afternoon from George Young, again with NCDOT Rail, to our engineer, Wayne Hyatt, that says that they see no problem. They have reviewed and they see no problems with the bid documents. So if it be the board's pleasure, I would ask that you award that pending those 2 caveats of final written approval by NCDOT Rail and release of the funding by the Department of Commerce. And I'll be glad to answer any questions anyone may have.
Any questions for Mr. Niblock?
Mr. Niblock, we had this discussion over the telephone, but for the benefit, I had a couple of phone calls for the benefit of people who don't have a very exciting life and happen to be watching tonight. I understand Hinkle Contracting Corporation submitted the lowest bid, but they failed to return some documents and certifications, so they had to be rejected. Would you explain, because we had a local subcontractor who was going to do work under Queen City Railroad, would you explain to everybody why their bid had to be rejected?
Yes, sir, I'll be glad to. First of all, what you stated about Hinkle is correct. They did not return a full bid packet and all the documents that they needed to. So first of all, that was the reason they were disqualified. Queen City Rail out of Tennessee was the second lowest bidder. However, they have a rail specialty license, and that license will only, based on the licensing law in North Carolina, that license will only allow them to do construction and repair of railroad lines, including the clearing and filling of right-of-ways, shaping, compacting, setting, and stabilization of road beds, setting ties, tie plates, rails, rail connectors, frogs, switch plates, switches, signal markers, retaining walls, dikes, fences, and gates, and construction and repair of tool sheds and platforms. It will not, however, allow them, there is relocation of some existing water lines and some storm drainage work that has to be done in conjunction with this project and is included in the bid. That license classification, however, will not allow them to do that based on the general contracting laws of North Carolina, and that is the reason that they were disqualified. I would add that the bid documents made it clear, and the addendums to the bid documents made it clear that the two classifications that were required to bid this project were either highway contractor or unclassified. Those are two other classifications of general contractor's license.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Niblock? If not, we'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer a motion that we award this contract to G.L. Wilson in the amount of $674,990.
Okay, any questions regarding the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jackson, are you handling the next item?
Yes.
Okay. Which is a request to hold a public hearing to expand East Alexander Fire District.
Here with us tonight is our representatives from the East Alexander Fire Department, and they're requesting a public hearing on August 3rd, 2010, at the regular meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners to consider expansion of the East Alexander Fire District. This proposed expansion will improve the fire department response to the Bullock Road area and Riverwalk subdivision located in the far western corner of Iredell County. The tax office has received and verified the required signatures of residents in the area under consideration for fire district expansion. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer those for you.
Any questions for Mr. Jackson?
It's my understanding that these fellows have worked everything out with West Iredell and everybody's okay, right?
Yes, in fact, the chief tonight brought a copy of a letter of support from West Iredell Volunteer Fire Department.
Okay.
Any additional questions?
Is it mandatory that they have to have a public hearing? Couldn't I not just go ahead and
Yeah, public
do
hearing.
that without it?
It's required.
It's required.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. No more questions, Mr. Jackson. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the public hearing for it as requested.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay, item J is approval of the June 15 minutes of the Board of Commissioners.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. Any questions regarding the minutes? Not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Item K is to approve a service agreement with Central Carolina Council of Governments to do a community profile for the Greater Statesville Development Corporation, with the Greater Statesville Development Corporation paying the cash portion of the agreement, and Iredell County contributing 7.5 of its membership hours that it receives as being a member of the Central Carolina Council of Governments.
Any questions? Not all in favor, please make a motion. Anyone?
I make a motion to grant this request, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Motion to grant request. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
The next item concerns a appointment of two members of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners to meet with two members of the Mooresville Commissioners to discuss the funding formula for the Mooresville Transfer Station. There's a funding formula that's been in place since about 1997, somewhere in that area, 96, 97, where Mooresville has paid 30% of the operating cost of the transfer station. They also participated in the construction of the facility and paying 30% of that. The town is of the opinion that over the years that the formula is no longer meets the current usage, in that it serves a lot more people that are not residents of the city than it does serve the residents of the city, and they are requesting, or they accepted a recommendation that was made to have a joint meeting, and they have appointed two members to do that. And so what is before you tonight is that this board also appoint two members that would have a couple of meetings in the near future to discuss the funding formula and see if there is justification for adjusting the current formula.
Have anyone interested in serving on the committee?
I'll do it if I have to.
Okay. Mr. Mitchell, we'll appoint Mr. Mitchell as one.
I'll serve, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mashburn, I'd like to presume upon you or some member of the staff for a short briefing session before we meet with them. I've seen your emails back with their town manager and correspondence between various people, but it's a little bit, I think events in those emails have been juxtaposed a little bit, so I'm not sure I got the full flow of all the conversation. I could presume upon you or whoever you designate on your staff that's up to speed on this thing. I'd like to talk to them before we meet with them.
Okay.
Okay. So Mr. Johnson and Mr. Mitchell, have a motion? Would you be the ones that represent us on that board?
Make a motion to appoint myself, but I will.
Okay.
So you don't have to.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend these two fine gentlemen to form that committee.
Okay. Any
If you're going to
questions?
be that nice, I'll let you make more motions, Mr. Kaye.
Any questions regarding the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, those are the administrative matters, and again, apologize for a couple of these items that were added. Some you did receive it in your packet. The lead track agreement not received until this afternoon, but actually we didn't even realize until today that it had to be done this way, and so we just did not have time to get that information out to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Iredell County Planning Board for appointments.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to suggest that we put this off one more time since Mr. Robertson's not here, and he and I have been in kind of ongoing discussions about it.
Do you think you'll be here next time?
I
I'd hate to put it off. we come back again, we don't have these people appointed.
And when's our next meeting, August?
August 3rd.
If you don't mind, I'd like to try one more. I think he'll be here. If he won't, if he's not, we'll vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, is that all right, the rest of you, to put it off?
I'm in favor of
Give me a
voting
motion.
but I'll do it.
Yes.
May I interrupt? I apologize. We're kind of stuck on the planning board because it's 4 members, and we had to postpone our last meeting because we were not going to have a quorum. So I hate to throw a wrench in it, but we probably would have to postpone our next one, and we've got 2 cases pending. So
These 4 members is critical to your meetings, right?
yes,
Have them, you need them now,
yeah.
okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
I move that we appoint Jackie Gregg, Jeff McNeely, Harold Pruitt, and Harry Toomas to continue on the planning board.
Okay. Any questions regarding the motion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, you should be able to have your meeting now, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, do we have any? How about new business? County manager report?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of matters here. One is, which is listed on the agenda, is to ask for your confirmation of the appointment of Tracy Jackson as the acting county manager, beginning July the 13th and through July the 30th. A proper, this is in accordance with the state statutes, and a letter will be certified by the clerk of this appointment.
Okay. Any questions regarding the request?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion approved. Any questions regarding the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of out of order by just a little bit. On that new business, I was going to ask Mr. Mashburn, do we need to discuss this DSS Director of Business?
I was going to bring that up under the managers. I just get some guidance from you because the DSS board is currently recruiting and will be soon interviewing candidates for the DSS director's position when Mr. Wall retires at the end of September. The state statutes are such that there's not any question, at least in my mind, and again, I'm just trying to interpret these from a layman's point of view, but that the appointment of a DSS director is the responsibility of the DSS board. However, 108A13 says the Board of Social Services of every county, with the approval of the Board of County Commissioners, shall determine the salary of the director in accordance with the classification plan of the State Personnel Commission. And so, my recommendation to the board is that before the DSS board gets too far down that path of selecting a DSS director, that there be a joint meeting between the DSS board and the county commissioners, because they're going to be coming back to you requesting that you approve a salary for a DSS director, and I would assume that you would want to have some prior information and input into that process before that point. So the question I was going to present to you is whether or not that was your desire, and if you wanted to instruct me to go ahead and work with the DSS director to set a joint meeting time with the boards. It could be at your next meeting of the county commissioners, or you could set a separate meeting. Those were the comments that I was going to make, Dr. Cadle. If you have other comments, or
I had a question for you and maybe for Mr. Pope. The statutes seem to give us the the ability to either approve or not approve a salary.
Correct.
And if there's no salary, we assume that the director wouldn't work for free. And so we could effectively block anybody by not approving their salary. Is that correct or not?
I think that's probably substantially correct.
And so you could maybe lend some insight to this, but I would think the legislators figured that out when they wrote that statute. They knew what they were doing, and their intent then was to give us an effective veto in this situation and for us to have input into who became the director, since we have to deal with them so much. So I guess if that's all true, then I'd just like to make my suggestion to this board that we do take an active part in finding out who the director is going to be on the front end, so we don't end up having to say no to somebody on the back end, wasting a lot of people's time.
Okay. Any other comments?
I agree.
Okay.
Just somebody we're going to have to work with. I think it'd be for the benefit of all involved that we'd have some input into it.
But anyway, we look at it, we're responsible. They're going to come after us, the public will, whatever happens or does not happen. So we got to buy in what we wanted or not.
Yeah.
You know. Any volunteers to serve on that?
I think we're going to.
We need to have a meeting together, Mr. Mashman, is what I think.
Well, I was suggesting a joint meeting of both boards, but if you want to appoint someone from this board to meet with someone from that board, but, I mean, that would be fine, but my suggestion was that a joint meeting of both boards.
Well, what, anyone interested in
Well,
serving? You
what
want to
I-
meet with both boards?
Well, I think just full boards of both.
Okay.
If we could just schedule it, an hour or two prior to this meeting.
Okay.
If they can work it out and our staff can work it out, we'd meet maybe at 5 o'clock and joint meeting with those folks before we come here.
You want to do that on the next meeting, which is August 3rd?
Fine with me.
How about you guys, your schedule?
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
If it's not possible to work it out for the next meeting, if you even delay that until August meeting, you still have time before the appointment, but as far as I'm concerned, I mean, at the next meeting, we've not talked to them, so.
Okay, all right. Your emails let us know or something,
Yes.
right? Okay, all right.
We will try to work it out for a joint meeting prior to the regular meeting of the county commissioners on August the 3rd.
Well,
Yes. Well, we'll probably have to have it in the south wing.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me say this. Let's try to do it prior to the next meeting. If for some reason the process is further along and we need to do it, and we can't do it prior to the next meeting, but we need to move expeditiously, we can have it sometime between our next two meetings. I'm not demanding that we have it prior to our next meeting, but
You know how far along they are in the process, Mr. Master?
I know they're receiving applications, but as far as I know, they're not reviewing applications yet. But now, I want to make sure I'm clear, Mr. Johnson. Are you saying prior to the next meeting, but you're saying on the day of the next
Right.
meeting, just
I'm
hours
saying
prior
if
to
they
it?
can't meet at, say, 5 o'clock
Yes.
on the same day as our meeting, and in your judgment, the process is further along where we can't wait 2 weeks
Okay.
from that, then let us know and we'll meet when we have to meet.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Sure,
may,
go ahead.
we, in light of these scheduling constraints and the fact that his judgment's not really going to be available, I don't think, from most of that time, you're going to be out of touch. I think it'd be better if we appoint one representative. I think, this board has a lot of good representatives that could go and represent this board and probably comply with the schedule a whole lot better.
I don't have a problem with that either. Mr. King.
And I'm not trying to volunteer, but I won't try to get out of it either.
You just did.
Well,
Yeah, didn't you?
I don't know, but I'm glad to do it. I don't think I'm the most qualified, given my newness to the board, but I will do it if that's what the board wants.
What do you think, Mr. Johnson?
Well, I could get a little messy. I'll tell you what, make it simple. If we can't have it on the same day of our next meeting, but there needs to be a meeting and there's a scheduling problem, I will agree to go meet with them.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Represent this board.
Sure, is that all right with you guys? Sure.
Yes, sir.
Is that, you understand that, Mr.?
Yes, I do. And I would also like to point out, Mr. Jackson, who will, of course, be acting county manager, also is the staff person that works with the DSS board, so he's pretty familiar with what's going on there, and I think would be able to provide you some input as to how far along in the process they are and how much time we may have in order to give some additional input into it.
Okay, so Mr. Jackson, we are aware to be in contact person in your absence.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, that suits you, so you know.
Fine.
Okay, good. We now have.
Well, I still.
You have more information?
I did have one other thing. I just want to give you an update on the animal shelter.
Sure.
Because it's been a while since we've talked about that, and things. But once the contracts were let, things started going good, and then they did run into some subgrade problem in that there was some soils that had to be moved, so that delayed things down. But they're back on schedule now, and hopefully, if weather continues to cooperate, we'll see some work other than just grading work going on out there. There have been a couple of change orders, as I indicated, we had to evacuate, or excavate, not evacuate, excavate some soil and replace it with soil that can be better compacted, but there was not a lot of that, and fortunately we were able to find suitable soil on site. It was just not where it needed to be, so it was just basically transferring soil on site. And but the project right now, and Lynn is here if you've got any questions about him, but it seems to be back on schedule, and so unless there is some bad weather or something, we're still looking at completion date as originally scheduled by Christmas.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
before you go into closed session, I think I was asleep when you called for adjustments to the agenda.
Yes, sir.
There is a matter involving economic development that I'd like to take 2 or 3 minutes to discuss with you in closed session pursuant to 143-318-11, subsection 4.
Okay. All right. Any other additions to the agenda? Any closed session? Okay, this time we will go on closed session under GS 143, that's 318.11, section 83, and that's legal, and 143, 318, 11, 84, and that's economic development. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Official action needs to be taken as a result of a closed meeting. I motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to adjourn. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Aye.